All right, so at this point, you've filled out your application, you've paid for it, got your receipt, you've gathered all your documents, and you've made the trip to DC. So, I mean, this is the embassy visit portion of this process, and so you're getting one step closer to finalizing this part of the application process. It's going to be a separate part I'll talk about later. I'll go through this real quick because I'm sure by the time even of recording this video, they probably would have changed some of the process, but I'll at least show you my experience when I visited the embassy. Alright, this piece is from the Kenyan Embassy DC org website, and this is actually very important information, and this should have come before the embassy visit part of this, but you need all this. This information is required, and even before you get there, please keep this in mind. They're only accepting these applications between 9:30 a.m. and 2:30 p.m. So your time frame is a little bit squished, and if you fail to bring in any of these documents, it's not only going to hold up your application process, it's going to hold up everybody else's behind you. So again, that's why I said don't be that guy. But I'm not going to drain this. Things like copy of your birth certificate, the application form, and Kenyan ID and copy. And this guy is a little bit weird, right? The 3 passport photos, and when they say 3 passport photos, they actually do mean 3. They're not being cute. And here's a tip for you: you can save a little bit of money. I went to Walgreens and they charged like $14.99 for one set. I came home and I'm like, oh crap, they need 3 passport size photos. And so I called them back a little bit later. I'm like, hey, do you still have my picture on file? And they're like, we probably do. And I'm like, okay, so how much for an additional set? And they're like $14.99. So that's $30. But Kinko's, it's called FedEx Office now, the first set is $14.99, so you're on par with Walgreens. But the second set, it's actually $9.99, so you're saving yourself $5, and that's nothing to sneeze at, especially like I've talked about that family of 4. You're gonna save $20. $20 is $20, right? So that's something to keep in mind. But please, all this information here, it may seem a little bit arduous trying to collect some of all this, but it is going to help you move your process along, and it's going to help everybody else move their process along. Alright, I'm going to cover this real quick here because I'm going to give you some details later on, but the process kind of follows this. You get there to the embassy, you're registered. After registration, you go to another room where you get instructions and given some of the document ordering information, and then finally they do the biometrics, and then you're sent on your merry way. When I go to the embassy, go to the main embassy building and you let in, and the first thing you have to do is register. So the registration process, it entails you entering your name and your e-passport application reference number into a computer, and basically it's first come first serve. You are then taken to the Wangari Maathai conference room, which is basically acting as an overflow room, because as I mentioned, right now you're already in the main embassy building. To the right there's a visa application building. There's another waiting room I've indicated over here. This one here is considerably smaller than the waiting room on the left hand side in the main embassy building. The one on the right maybe comfortably holds 20-30 people. This one on the left, probably twice as many people and a lot more spacious. But basically in high traffic times, and which we did experience a little bit later on in the afternoon, you are kept in this room in the Wangari Maathai conference room until space opens up in the visa application building. My wait wasn't too long. I did get there roughly around 10 o'clock in the morning, and I was probably number 15 to register. There are people who got there as early as 8:30 if I remember correctly. However, as the website indicates, the passport applications do not start being processed until after 9:30 a.m. So after that, once the room opens up, or if you're good to go, you're taken to this other waiting room. I mean, there's a gentleman by the name of Abdi, and this is another gentleman who actually made the process a lot more memorable in my experience. What he does here is, unfortunately, he's just one person, right? And he's trying to process all these applications that are coming in, and but he does give you a breakdown of what the process looks like, how you're going to go through the day. Then he gives us some detailed instructions on how to order the documents inside, because you're going to be given a manila folder, and I'll talk about that here in what I feel could be some process improvements later on. But he gives you this manila folder, and you put your documents in there, and then basically, like I said, he's a one-man show. And in addition to that, as I mentioned, this is a visa application building too. He does let you know at the start that in addition to him trying to help all of us, there are going to be people seeking visas, and he does have to help them as well. So There were a couple of interruptions, maybe 4 during the time I was there. I wouldn't call them interruptions because it's actually around the business kind of thing, but where he had to kind of stop helping us and focus on the visa applicants. So I do want to keep that in mind. And the reason why I bring up the fact that it's one person who's also dealing, kind of wearing many hats here, is the documents. If you don't have your documents in order, they're going to be downstream impacts. You're going to bog down the process, not only for yourself, but everybody behind you. And I'll kind of talk about that in my next section here regarding some of the process improvements. So for instance, there was a gentleman who forgot his originals. I don't know whether he forgot them maybe at the hotel he was staying at, or hopefully not where he came from, if it was out of state. And then there's another chap, you can just tell a backbencher, this chap was already licking his lips, trying to moisten the lie that he's going to tell Abdi. When your name is called, you go up there, you talk to Abdi, and he looks through your documents, make sure all the documents are there, takes out any extra stuff. But he asks this guy, why do you only have one photograph? And the instructions clearly call for 3, and you could just see him just licking his lips, ready to let this lie out. And it's just like, so things like that, your payment has not gone through. That's why I gave you that instructions on how to make sure that your payment has been processed. All those have downstream impacts. And again, they probably do need to look at that process, either get a couple of different avenues for somebody else to help him, especially as time draws near, or like I said, I got a couple of improvements where I envision I would try to help curtail some of these bottlenecks we were seeing. After that, you go to the biometrics room, and here again the paperwork is reviewed. They're going to take a picture of you, and I actually did not know that at the time, and I was dressed just the way you see me right here. They're going to take a picture of you, and they do advise if you got any kind of earrings or necklaces that you do remove them, anything like nose piercings and stuff like that. They did ask me to remove my glasses during the picture taking, and I know Francois had one of the gentlemen from MA that I kind of mentioned at the intro in case you didn't watch it, but he did have dreads, and I don't remember whether he was told to keep them down or keep them up. Hopefully this video gets to him and he can advise on how that process looked for him, those people with dreads. Finally, they take your fingerprints, and then you're going to see another gentleman just to make sure everything is in order, after which you're given a tracking number, and that tracking number is very important, and you got to keep that information. My suggestion, take a picture of it as soon as you leave the building so that there's no chance that you lose it. When you're calling to get information about your passport, especially when it's been returned, you're going to need a tracking number. Speaking of which, so this process is not yet complete, right? What's going to happen here is that once your documentation has been approved and taken in, that application is taken to Kenya. The passport is actually printed in Kenya and then sent back to the US by secured courier. It's delivered to the embassy by secured courier. After which, so now this kind of mimics or looks like the previous process. Unless you're in the immediate DC or surrounding areas, you can drive there and get it. Again, with that tracking number, you're going to need that information. Otherwise, like was happening previously, was you could send a self-addressed envelope to the embassy and then have that sent back to you at your current residence. Once you're given the tracking number, you are sent on your merry way, and you can celebrate a little bit, that you've gone through this process. Because it has been a bit of a journey. It took me got out of there about 12:15, so about 2.25 hours. And he said on that day it actually moved quickly. So imagine the kind of bog down if people don't have the documents, and as a deadline approaches and more and more people are getting there. So that's why I was saying, there has to be a couple of ways. There must be some people who are definitely smart out there who can look at this process and say, okay, what ways can we improve it? Okay, I just wanted to finish up this section with some of the areas I'd kind of alluded to or touched on in the previous videos. The first being is the addition of your local US or Canadian phone number. This is a screenshot of the application form, and if you watch the previous videos, I did mention there's some pain points in the fact that it does force the applicants to use a 254 country code. It's not originally formatted. So for instance, if you selected the location you want to process the application is at Washington DC or the United Kingdom, it doesn't change the inputs in those fields to be regionally formatted for those particular countries, area codes and dates and so forth. But when you get to the embassy, they will advise you where to enter your local US or Canadian phone number. It's going to be one of these 3 spots here. I don't want to tell you which of the 3 it's going to be. It's because I might have changed things by the time you watch this video, but at least you will have that option to enter that information once you do print out your application and get to the embassy. Alright, the other piece I wanted to cover real quickly is a recommender signature, and the fact that it was brought up during the instructions at the embassy. It gives us an indication that this does tend to be an issue or concern that seems to pop up time and again. If you print out the application, and this is a screenshot from it, this piece of it can get buried in and lost in with the rest of the text. They do want us to capture the recommender signature. That's physically possible. Again, that depends on where your recommender is located. Otherwise, if that is not the case, Abdi does give you instructions on how to kind of fill in this information if you're not able to capture that signature physically. Again, it's not the end of the world. The other piece was the date format. Abdi, suggested we use this format where we spell out the name of the month and then the date and the year, and I can see where it's coming from. For instance, a month date combo like January 5th, if you put it in 01/05/2019, depending on where you're from, whether it's the US or the UK or Kenya, somebody could read it as January 5th or May 1st. So I see the reason why he wants this format is that it can remove some of that confusion regarding the date month format. Okay, so I wanted to touch on this real quick, and if you had watched the intro video, I kind of alluded to this at that point, but if you have this is the older blue passport, not the dark blue one that's mostly in circulation right now. You may want to bring some additional information such as, your green card. And again, the reason why I say may is that none of this information is listed on the embassy site, but in hearing the conversations that are going on at the Kenyan Embassy, it might be a good thing to bring some of this additional information so that it helps move your process along and doesn't hold it up. I kind of mentioned earlier in this video that the passports are being printed in Kenya. The applications have been taken here, but then all that is being sent back to Kenya. Again, there's going to be some verification there, and this may help answer some of those questions so that the application doesn't get held up. So just something you might want to keep in mind.